Welcome tonight. I'm very happy to be back at the Towers. For this audience, for the new people who have not seen me before, and for the television audience, my name is Howard Sherdutt. I have been doing this for 16 years now. My background is I graduated Harvard College and in psychology, sociology, and cultural anthropology, and then went into the Air Force, served in Korea, came back, went to the Graduate School of Business at Columbia University, have an MBA in international business, and then worked at several jobs, worked eventually with IBM for 30 years in various marketing positions. When I retired, my wife and I went to a little business, and we traveled a little bit in the country with that. And then my wife said, it's enough, I want to be really retired, so why don't you figure out something else to do? And it turns out that I developed this talking with people like yourselves in libraries, assisted living, and private locations, and in Jewish community centers. And I've been doing it for 15 years, so I'm very happy to be doing that. And I've talked about a number of topics, from economics to social issues to political issues, international issues, and so forth. And tonight we're going to talk about the new American dream. That's tonight's topic. So that's my background, and how I conduct these talks is it's really, I'm not preaching to you or teaching you anything, because you're all experienced and have a long history of knowledge. I really bring up a topic which I give you my point of view on, and perhaps other people's points of view, and then I solicit you to add to it or criticize it or whatever, so you have a voice in this meeting we have tonight. So without any further ado, I'll enter into the topic, which is the new American dream. And it's really a mixed bag, and as we get into it, you'll see what I mean. The old American dream, the one that you and I grew up with, because I assume none of you are under 40. So if you're 60, 70, 80, 90, you grew up with the old American dream. And the American dream was, you work hard, you get educated, you remain ethical and moral in your views, and you will share in the bounties that are available. This was partially true, even though this was the general American ethic, but if you were a minority, it wasn't true. If you were a woman, it wasn't totally true. If you were an American Indian, it wasn't totally true. But that was the mythology, more or less, that we all grew up with and actually worked out, and probably successfully so, for the majority of Americans. There's a new American dream now, and we're yet to work that totally out. The old American dream still lives, though, and I'll get into that in a moment. But the demographics have changed dramatically in the United States. The civil rights movement, women's rights movement, the gay and lesbian movement, the immigration movement, reform movement, they contribute to this new dream, because a lot of those people now can participate in an American dream, right? In addition, the poor and sick, and with Obamacare and other passage of various political laws and so forth, the Disability Act, for instance, people who were crippled and people who were disadvantaged one way or another have been given special treatment in many respects, and many technical things have been developed where they can participate in the American dream. So it really has been expanded to a great degree, but there's also been other infusion of other concepts, and we'll talk about that in a moment. The struggle is painful. There are a lot of people that feel that the old American dream should be the old American dream. In other words, maybe the minority shouldn't be included. Maybe women shouldn't be part of this new world, this new American dream. There are many people in this country who have a very conservative view of life here and what it should be like. And we can discuss that later. So there we are, we're all into this new age, all right? And we all have to learn how to live in this new age. The fact is that the new dream is still very much alive amongst many new immigrant groups. And that can be easily demonstrated, like here, well, this is New York City here, but 3 steps away from Nassau County. And there were 400 finalists, as an example, in the Intel Awards. Intel gives an award every year to the top science and math papers which are submitted to them for a competition to see who was the finalist and then who was the winner of the major dollar awards. And of those 400, 50 were from Long Island. 26 of the 50 were from North Hempstead, which is, again, a neighbor of yours here. 26 from 225,000 population. California had 50 out of a 38 million population. So you see, that tells you something, right? It tells you the superiority of the education maybe in North Hempstead, but tells you something. Let's look at the demographics of who won. And 80%, actually, 70 or 80% were Asian Americans, Indian or Chinese or Korean. And I took that information and I sort of tried to analyze it from a national point of view. And you know what? It's the same around the country. Not to the same percentage amounts, but it was the same kind of statistic. So it tells you that the world is changing here in our local area, but also in this country. So for those kids from these new immigrant groups, they were either first generation or newly immigrant children. The American dream certainly is true because they will achieve much in our country and in the world because we are increasingly turning into a needed demographic, which is scientific minds, scientific people who work in that technical areas. And unfortunately, the country is falling behind because the rest of the country doesn't really pay that much attention, has not paid attention to it, nor have the politicians, as this country has fallen behind the rest of the world in matters of technical development. And therein lies one of the reasons why the American dream is in danger of not being what you and I thought and hoped and worked it to be. Because in the new world, and we'll talk about that also in more detail, in the new world, the world is catching up and even in some cases going ahead of us in these developmental areas. And the economy will follow where that happens. And the American dream is built on a vibrant, growing economy to be a reality. And if you don't have it, you have disappointment and you have friction and you have things which we see which we don't like in our society. So therein lies the part of the talking about the dream. The things which are been positive that developed the dream, and that's what your handout shows, is that from the very beginning, there was a dream. The Puritans that came here had a dream of religious freedom. Now, their dream wouldn't include many of you people because they excluded Catholics and they excluded Jews and they excluded many Protestants that weren't thinking like they were, okay? But they did break away from this European view of religion and did start free in this country. The founding fathers were very enlightened from that point of view, yet they still, in order to found a country, they had to compromise, and slavery was kept as an institution, even though all people are created equal, according to Thomas Jefferson. The fact is that we did, however, begin the road towards positive things for everybody that came to this country. The Constitution, again, was developed after the Declaration of Independence, and then we had the Emancipation Proclamation, where over 600,000 people died to free the blacks, and yet they really weren't free until really 1964. This is the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act, if you were to look into it. And the fact is that each tiny step was made to make the American dream available to people in this country. The fact is that women didn't get the right to vote until 1921 in this country. So that women weren't totally free. I'm told, because I was too young to remember, that because people in the audience have told me this, that when they went to work, when their husbands or their brothers and all went off to work after the army or to serve the military, they went to try to get a job, and they would have to get their father or the male figure in their family to approve them getting a job. And this was true, for sure it was true, women couldn't serve in certain military industries, nor could the blacks, by the way, serve in certain companies. They weren't permitted to, all right? But that has gradually changed with all the political movement that we've had in this country towards a freer, more inclusive society. There are always people who have fought against that, but we have moved inexorably towards what we said and thought was the American dream. We've had one of the major items was really the Second World War, where women were needed and therefore were eventually accepted into certain things, and blacks were accepted even to the military to do certain jobs, which is not the subject of today's discussion. But the fact is it did open up doors for both women and blacks. The fact is that the GI Bill opened it up for the majority of white Americans, male Americans, that served in the war to become professional people. And they became part of what is needed to really have an American dream or a freedom country rooted in freedom and aspiring to freedom, a strong middle class. And it was really, in my view, the strongest thing that really made America achieve what it did and achieve the dream. It was the GI Bill. Then we had, of course, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the American with Disabilities Act of 1990, the Patient Protection and Affordable Act of 2010. The fact is that more and more things have happened to give a lot of people in our society the access to an American dream. We have now, we see gay and lesbian ability to get married. They were not free, and they still are not free in many states, but it's more and more states are moving in that direction. The fact is that these are positive things that give people the chance to be or achieve the American dream. But there are opportunities and there are challenges to this. Again, challenges from people who really want to go backwards and say women should be in the house, they shouldn't achieve these things in the political or in the business world. And there are some people who still harbor all sorts of prejudicial things to limit who should be participants in the American dream, even though the tide has certainly swung so inexorably in the other direction. Immigration is one major debate about that, because that's a great big number of people who have come here and who want to achieve or want to become part of the American dream and have been excluded, rightly or wrongly. That's a political debate, but there is that debate still in existence. The other problem we have with achieving the American dream is the state of our educational system today. We have fallen way behind the need for technical graduates, people who really understand and can live in this and develop and invent and work with and even repair the modern equipment that we all need, want, and have today. And we are falling further behind the world in that. And that's one of the things I said earlier about the Asian American immigration situation, where in Nassau County and in the country for that matter, most of the winners are Asian. They're either Chinese, Korean, or Indian. And so we're competing with the world, and if we fall behind economically, we will not be, our children's children will not be able to achieve what we call the American dream. American universities are also all over the world. The American educational system is let's say, looked up to, and the leading universities here, and many of the not leading universities, have established divisions all around the world. Not that they pay for them, the countries pay for them, because they want access to the American methodology and the American professors that show up there and by contract fly back and forth. This is all over the world, not one or two, hundreds of universities participate around the world in this educational effort. And the last thing I'll mention in this area, which is on the list here, is the economic inequality, which we have in this country and in the world, where the rich are getting richer and the middle class is slowly disappearing for a lot of different reasons, whether it be political, economic, demographic, whatever it may be. We can talk about that later. The fact is, it is true that the rich are getting richer and the middle class in this country is getting smaller, even as the middle class in China, India, and many of these other countries are still burgeoning forward because they're competing successfully with us in those technical areas. So therein lies the whole panoply of discussion about the American dream. One of the other things which exists today, see, one of the things that illustrates it, I'll show you a little, in Inc. magazine, which is a magazine about small businesses and so forth, last month had the picture of this young lady, the lady who invented Spanx, okay? And now she's one of the youngest billionaires. We don't talk millionaires anymore, right? So there are two lessons from this. One, it's a woman, and two, she's in her 20s and she's a billionaire. That's part of the new American dream, is I'll just hit it big, and I don't have to work and slave and put out, you know, and do without for 40 or 50 years to make it. I can do it in 2 or 3 years with the right invention or whatever. Now this is a product, whereas most billionaires today are people who develop software. You take Zuckerberg, who started Facebook. He's a multi-billionaire. He was that in his 20s. But he's only one of the people that started Google. They all represent what people now hold up as part of the new American ideal. Oh, it's make it when you're 20, not when you're 50. Don't work hard, yeah, but do it in such a way where you don't get your hands dirty even, right? You may get a little tired and bleary-eyed looking at a screen, but that's an American dream that exists today. The other American dream is, well, maybe we can do it somehow illegally. How many people have seen The Wolf of Wall Street? You've seen it? If you've seen that picture, you understand that's another American dream. It's just to briefly describe the movie or the book or the story to you, a fellow by the name of Jordan Belfort from Bayside, right here, and eventually moved up to Brookville, was a guy in his 20s who decided he would sell penny stocks and make money doing it, and he was very successful. So successful that he became a billionaire in his 20s. All right? He is still alive. He's only 42 now. He's been in jail because of the illegal acts that he did and the drug taking he did and fornication he did, but the illegal acts that he did illegally against the law. And he went to jail, and he came out and he picked up and did some other things which have made him again and still a billionaire. And he sold his story to Leonardo DiCaprio, who plays him in the picture, all right? And if you ever have a chance to see the picture, I would see it. It's an immoral picture in many cases, because you see things there that you never thought would be on a big screen, okay? The fact is, there it is, okay? And DiCaprio was magnificent portraying this guy. But this is an American dream. Make it big. It doesn't matter how I do it. Make it big. And it was started back, the first picture like that was written by directed by Oliver Stone back in '87, where Michael Douglas coined the phrase, greed is good. Well, in this particular movie, greed is not only good, it's fantastic, but other things equally as illegal are great too. And he was glorified to the point where the FBI agent who actually got the facts on him and helped prosecute him, he rides the subways in New York, and it showed him riding the subways in New York while this is after he was convicted and went to jail. He's still living the high life. So the fact is greed is good, right? And the American dream is really, the FBI agent is following the American dream, and he's riding a subway, and the Belfort, who follows a different new American dream, he's living the high life. Yes? You agree, those people that saw the movie? Oh, okay. You don't agree he's living a good high life. Well, well, okay. Well, in his terms, good high life. Okay? The fact is that, but young people see this and say, hey, that's what I aspire to. Why should I work 60 years like my father or my grandfather? I can maybe do it in 3 or 5. So there's the Zuckerbergs, there's the people who developed Google who were smart and young, and this lady. But there's the other element that says, well, I don't have that brains, I don't have that education, I don't have this and that. I'll do it a different way. And I'll do it. There's a lot of scams and schemes out there, and I'm sure many of you have been contacted by phone, by computer, or some way or another, in one kind of a scam or another where people are trying to take advantage of you. So that's it, get rich quick mentality, which is a part of a new American dream. So therein lies the thesis of my discussion tonight. Now, I'm sure you all have views and comments and maybe some things I said you don't agree with even. So I'll turn it over to somebody or anybody who would like to make a statement or add to things that I've said at this point.
Anybody?
Anybody? Well, this lady here had one thing to say when I said, inappropriately perhaps, that Belfort is leading a good, wonderful new high life. And she says, well, good is a relative term in a sense. And in our sense, it wasn't good. But he is leading a life of luxury and wealth. Okay? And this is glorified, actually, in the movie, because there was nothing in the movie that said this was bad. He didn't end up in jail. He ended up prospering very much after the movie in the same way. So therein lies what's happening with the dream and the new dream. And the fact is, I also read recently in the New York Times, there was an article that mentioned that, oh no, in the Time magazine, excuse me, by Joe Klein, who said, the American dream is still alive, mostly in New York. Because in New York, there's that environment for that to happen. But in a lot of parts of the country, it does not exist. It does not exist. And the fact is, there's a lot of complaining, there's a lot of political discussion about it and arguing about it, but the fact is, for a lot of young people in this country, the American dream is really gone because they can't find jobs, many of them, because they're not in that skilled area, educated to actually participate in trying to be part of the American dream. And they say this is the first generation that'll be making less than their parents made because of that. So